Ryan Jarrell here for MMA News, and it's always a pleasure to have my next guest on the show, Cody Brundage, who will be back in action on December the 2nd at UFC Austin when he faces Zachary Reese. Cody, how are you?
I'm great, man. Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always great to have you. You know that, my man. It seems like all you Factory X guys, you just have the interview portion of all your job responsibilities down pat. You guys always do it right. Let's talk about your last fight. September was when we saw you in there, the Jacob Malkoon fight. And I know, ultimately you got the win, but that's not the way you wanted to win. I'm sure of it. So just, looking back now and that you've had a lot of time to process it, what's the takeaway? What did you maybe learn from that?
I'm at peace with my decision. Obviously there's a lot of backlash, and I feel like no matter what, there's a lot of backlash. If I continue to fight and then get knocked out, people are like, what an idiot. Why would his coaches let him do that? He was clearly compromised, so no matter what, it wasn't going to end with me like getting any praise, which is fine. I wasn't looking for praise. Um, I think some of the narratives out there bothered me more than anything. Like, I think I saw out there that people were saying, like, I knew that if I didn't continue, I would win, which wasn't the case. I thought it would be a no contest. I was as surprised as everyone else when it was a disqualification. Like, I never asked. I feel like we've seen fighters do that. Like, well, what's going to happen if I don't continue? I never asked that. I just knew that maybe I could stand up and continue to fight, but could I fight at a level that I felt like would be competitive? I didn't feel like I could. And I didn't feel like I should be at a disadvantage because of an illegal shot. Um, so I didn't continue. Right after that fight, I was like, I'm down to do the rematch. I didn't know if the UFC would re-sign me. So there was a lot going on with it. I think that my health and safety comes first. Fighting such a temporary thing. It's a great job. It's not really a career. It's a great job, and I got to be dad, and I got to be a good husband. I got to be all these other things that outside of fighting that are so much more important than fighting. And so anything that's going to compromise that more than fighting already does, I feel like isn't fair to them, and it isn't fair to me. So I'm at peace with my decision. Obviously, it's tough because I do care what people think about me. I feel like I present a very authentic, real version of myself. That's what the fans get. That's what people see. I don't play like a character. So the hate I got was definitely tough to deal with. But like I said, I'm happy with my decision. I think I made the right decision.
Before you were in that position on the ground and the illegal shot to the back of the head happened, how did you feel the fight was going? What kind of critiques did your team give you?
It's the same old story, man. I like if people would come to Factory X, nobody holds me down. If people come to Factory X, they see a whole different thing. So it's just trying to get through those mental blocks of like pausing and freezing, and maybe I'm not getting hurt or beat up, but I'm losing, and so trying to just work through that. And it's 100% a mental thing and not a physical thing. I think the same thing kind of happened in my Cedrica's fight. I didn't even attempt to get up. I never tried to improve my position, and that's a mental thing that I'm still trying to work through. I feel like I'm still pretty young in the game. I took my first amateur fight a little less than 6 years ago, so it hasn't been a ton of time. I'm still trying to grow and learn, and there's obviously growing up in the hardest organization in the world. There's a learning curve, so I still gotta figure some shit out. But hopefully this next fight we can make some improvements.
I interviewed your friend and teammate Dustin Jacoby last evening, and we talked about you a little bit. And one of the things that I asked him was, where your mindset's at, and what are we seeing from you inside the cage? Because I've always been a big fan of your skill set. Like, I feel like you're someone that belongs in the UFC, and that Cedriquez fight in particular, you just didn't look like yourself. And he pointed towards the mindset aspect of fighting. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more?
I just think this sport's a big momentum sport. When you got momentum, it's easy to feel good every time you get in there, and you got confidence. Those are big things. And when you hit a losing streak, not that you don't think you belong or you don't think you deserve to be there, but it's something you do battle a little bit. Um, and so it's kind of an uphill battle. That last fight, I didn't really get closure. I got a W, but it wasn't really a great fight. It didn't really give me a ton of confidence. It wasn't like, okay, I'm back. And then, before that I was on a 3 fight losing streak. And so then you start to wonder, like, what am I doing? Like, where is it going wrong? And you try to, I think sometimes maybe you try to fix too many things, and then that becomes its own problem in itself. So I'm just trying to keep it super simple this camp. And, I got good people around me like Dustin, who's a vet and kind of been through it. And, when you got guys like that telling you like, hey, you have all the talent in the world, you just got to believe in yourself. Like we believe in you. You know, it's I think it helps, and I do think it's important to have people that believe in you more than you believe in yourself. You know, I think that that's something that can go a long way, and I'm fortunate that I have that with quite a bit of people. So, um, you know, I always joke, you know, with my coaches and stuff. I'm like, listen, man, nobody is more frustrated with the performances we've had lately than me. I know that it's frustrating for Dustin, it's frustrating for coach, it's frustrating for all these people that know my potential, and it's frustrating because they care so much, but no one is more frustrated than myself. So like I said, hopefully can turn the corner in this next fight and just, you know, I'm so tired of getting out of that cage and just being like, what am I doing? Do I belong? Feeling bad about myself. You know, this is my passion. I got into this because I love it. I didn't get into it to like make it to the UFC. I'm glad that those things happened, but I got into it because I loved it. And I just want to leave the cage and feel good about myself again. So hopefully we can do that December 2nd.
I mean, I'd have to imagine if I was a UFC fighter and making the walk to the octagon, I mean, I'd be nervous as all hell. Do you feel that at this stage of your career? I was just talking to an amateur fighter the other day who said he basically blacked out on the walk to the cage and doesn't remember anything until he got his hand raised. Do you have those type of like emotions and nerves ever?
Um, I wouldn't say that I get as nervous as I used to. You know, I used to be a super nervous fighter. I feel like I get nervous for sure. I don't think it hinders my performance like it used to, maybe. But I definitely get nervous and uh you know, and it's more so just like I said, the nerves for me aren't like what they used to be. Before it was like I don't want to get hurt. Oh my God, this guy's gonna try to like I don't really think about that anymore. It's more just like I don't want to leave the cage and be like, man, what are you doing? Like you can do better than this. Like you are better than this. You're sacrificing so much and like what's the payoff? Like I just don't want to those nerves make because like I don't know, like it was sad, you know, after my Cedricus fight, after my last fight, there was obviously a lot of like negative feedback from people and like my parents, they don't really understand fighting, but they're like, man, I am happy that you're doing this because you love it, but if this makes you feel bad about yourself as a person, I don't want you to do it anymore. And I'm like, and so I'm sitting there thinking, like, does this make me feel bad? Like, and then that sucks because you're like, am I letting people I don't even know like take my passion from me, take something I love to do? Like, I don't even know the people that are like hating me. I've never met them. I never will meet them, but like, it does take it away from you a little bit. And so I think back to like the mental side of things is like, okay, well, why am I letting people do that? I got to work on not letting people do that, you know? And I think part of the tough things that are tough is that like, I feel like I'm an open book. Like the struggles I've had with my daughter and things like that. I feel like I'm very authentic and genuine. If I was a character and people were like, "We hate that guy," I'd be like, "Well, you just hate the character. You don't know me." But I feel like I let people in to know me. So if you don't like me, then you just don't like me, and that's tough to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, well, this is from an objective point of view, just looking at your situation, what you're saying. You know, the people that are hating on you and you know, Twitter trolling you and all that stuff, they're all fans. They all watch the
Yeah,
sport, so they all wish that they could be in your shoes. You know what I mean? So, like,
yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you must have people in your corner that tell you that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. They're like, who matters? Like, don't worry
Right.
about it if they don't matter. But like, I mean, me and you've talked outside of, you know, our interviews and stuff, and I've always told you, man, that stuff goes a long way. Because of course, like it's like when you're like as it, like when your mom's like, oh, you're so handsome. You're like, well, you're my mom. You have to tell me that. But like when people that like you care about and are friends with, but don't necessarily have to reach out and tell you those kind of things do, you're like, okay, it's affirming that like, all right, I'm all right. The people that matter and that are real, like the real people, like they don't have these feelings. And so it helps for sure. And then it's just you know, I'm young too, and like I love when people are like, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I'm like, well, maybe that's true, but I do care what people think about me, and so it'll always affect me, but it's just letting it affect me less and realizing that it's not even real. It's not even the real world. Like those people would never say anything to my face. Like I saw something the other day, and it pretty much I feel like epitomizes the whole culture of what it is now. Like I saw a tweet. It was like, if you could fight, if you name a UFC fighter you think you could beat, and somebody tagged me, they're like, oh, Cody Brundage, I could beat him. And then I just respond. I never respond, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna respond. I was like, you can come to the gym whenever you want. Just make sure you sign the waiver. They're like, immediately they respond, "Oh no, I'm rooting for you for your next fight." Blah blah blah. I'm like, that's the real world. Like if people saw me in person, they would never do these things. So just realizing that today's day and age, it's just different. Like it's not even real. It's not the real world. And so trying to distinguish between those two things is not always easy. But I do have good people around me that kind of are like, "Hey man, get out of it. Who cares? Put the phone down, get away from
Yeah.
it because it's not real life."
Yeah, that Twitter guy that said that if he saw you in person, he'd want to take a picture with you for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so you mentioned earlier in the interview that you weren't sure if the UFC was going to re-sign you. Does that mean that you did re-sign and this will be the first fight on your new deal?
Yeah, so I signed a new 4 fight deal. This will be the first fight on the new deal, and obviously I'm super pumped about that. I got everyone's like it's short notice, but it's more notice than I've had for my last two, so I feel like I got a whole camp.
That's fantastic, man. Was that a surprise to you just after the way the last couple of fights happened? Like, did you feel like you were going to get re-signed, or were you kind of thinking about, well, what are my next steps? Should I be looking at Bellator or?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't confident they were gonna resign me, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't necessarily think in my last. I think I've shown glimpses, even in losses. I think I've shown glimpses that I belong here. Like I feel like the Hidalgo fight, I was dominating that fight until I
Oh,
made a bad decision and lost. And that was poor decision making. But like I said, I'm young in the sport. I felt like the Olin Jacek fight, I was winning that fight until I made a poor decision and lost. And so it's kind of been some struggles, but at least in those fights, I've shown glimpses. But my last two, obviously, one was a DQ win, which that doesn't do anything for your stock. And then the Cedricus fight was probably the worst performance of my entire professional career, and that happens. I feel like, I moved past it, and obviously it was upsetting. Um, but there was also some, there's no excuses for anything. I should never show up and perform the way I did. I will say I got home on Sunday and had my second daughter on Monday. There was some different circumstances. I don't know if I should have taken that fight. I felt like I was much better than Cedricus. I felt like I could beat him no matter what. And maybe that was just a little bit of overconfidence. But anyway, my last two fights, I didn't feel like I really showed that I was UFC caliber. And so if they wouldn't have re-signed me, I wouldn't have been like, what the hell? I can't believe that. I was expecting the call to be go get some wins on the regional scene, go do this. And I was prepared to do that. Obviously it worked out way better. I'm fortunate that they did re-sign me. And like I said, gave me some notice, and I think it's a good matchup. And sometimes you see guys get like re-signed, and they're like, "All right, now you got to fight Bo Nickel or who," you know what I mean? Like, so I don't feel like they did that to me, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited to kind of hopefully erase these last two because we're talking about fans, but fans. One thing that's good about MMA fans, they got short memory. So you go and have a great performance. Nobody's remembering the last few.
100%. And with the new addition to the family, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks,
I'm
buddy.
hoping that the UFC has, paid you properly with this upcoming contract. Is it a nice bump in pay?
Yeah, they bumped my pay too, which also I was surprised. So it's all good, man. I feel like shout out my management, Iridium. They always seem to do a good job, especially when it comes to renegotiations and getting good fights. So I appreciate them and they definitely went to work for me. So
Yeah, Jason House must rep like 50% of the UFC roster at this point, right?
dude, I mean, I'm fighting Zach. Zach signed with
Yeah,
Iridium too. I'm
right.
like, like, and this is the first time I fought an Iridium guy, and I was like, that's crazy. Most guys are fighting each other like every week. I feel like he's got guys fighting each other. So
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, well, they're doing it phenomenally at Iridium Sports, no doubt about it. Well,
yes.
tell me what family life is like now with the new addition. How has it been? Being having a second child and your dad responsibilities growing.
It's definitely different, man. Like two is a big jump. It changes a lot of things, and um, fortunately, my wife's a rock star. She kills it, and she never complains. She gets what I'm doing because she's done it. But we're kind of on man to man right now. When I'm home, I'm on Kingsley, our oldest. I'm getting her ready and getting her ready for therapies, getting her meals ready, all that kind of stuff. And my wife's pretty much on the baby, but uh, it's good, man. It's been great. I love being a girl dad. I think it's just what I need. I feel super lucky and she's almost 5 months, so she's starting to get a little personality. Those first 3 months, there's like, how it is. It's kind of rough because there's no real personality and it's a lot of work. But now it's kind of getting to start to get the payoff, and Kingsley's pretty indifferent to her, which I think is hilarious. And But she is a little bit jealous, which is also funny to me. So it's good, man. I love being a dad. I feel like as long as I'm doing good there, like it makes everything else in life easier because I feel like, maybe I had a bad day at the gym, whatever. As long as I can come home and be a good dad, I'm doing well in life. So I can feel successful.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So I have to imagine that your life is basically family, Factory X, and repeat, right? It's one or the
Yeah,
other.
that's exactly what it is. Back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes it gets monotonous, but I wouldn't want it any other way, man. I live a great life for sure.
Tell me how camp's going. I know you got a lot of killers around you as always. How has this camp been so far?
Man, it's great. I was back in training like 2 weeks after my that Malkoon fight, and I was pretty light. It was light training for like 3 weeks after that. So I had like 5 weeks of not really killing it, and then kind of right as I got news of this fight, I was able to get back into it, pretty serious. It was like a 6 7 week camp. And I got good training partners. I'm a DJ. He's fighting 2 weeks after me. I feel like we always fight pretty close to each other, which is nice. It's great being in camp with a guy like that and just kind of vibing off each other. And then Josh Fremd is in the gym with me every day, who's he's pretty much the same size as Zachary Reese, which isn't easy to find guys that big at the weight. So I feel like I'm getting really good looks and hard push. And I just know like everybody wants me to be as successful as I want to be. So they're pushing me that way. It's not always nice, but it's what I need. So camp's been good. Like I said, I feel lucky. Factor X is a great spot.
Yeah, no doubt. Tell me your professional analyst opinion here of the Jacoby Menafield fight. What do you think we're going to see in that one?
I just think obviously I'm biased, but I feel like Dustin's just too skilled. I feel like in a fight that's probably going to be majority a kickboxing fight, Dustin's he's longer, he's bigger, he has better cardio, he has better volume, he has more diverse attacks in terms of kicking and striking. So I feel like he gets the job done. I feel like he could find a finish in there, or he could just outpoint the guy for 15 minutes. It could look like his fight against Owen Jacek, where he just kind of did what he needed to do to win, or he could put him out. He's shown he's got the power to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if I was Alonzo, I'd be trying to wrestle a little bit, get him tired, put him against the cage. But I try to do that to Justin all the time. It's not that easy, and so I think guys think that like, oh, I'll just go wrestle him, I'll out grapple him, but I don't think it's as easy as it looks maybe. And so I feel like if people do that, they get themselves tired, and it just kind of plays into Dustin's hands. So I think it'll be a pretty dominant victory, whether he gets the finish, whether he beats him over 15 minutes. I just think the skill gap is pretty large, and it's nice because we're fighting up in the rankings. So Dustin's defended his spot a few times, so it'd be nice for him to get a bump. And I feel like, to me, when I look at Medenfield, I feel like he's a slower, less explosive version of Khalil. And I felt like Dustin won that fight and it looked really good doing it. And I feel like he'll be able to do that even more in this fight.
Okay, that makes sense. I can definitely see that happening. Brandon Royville is fighting for the title in December. Tell me how he gets it done and how he brings the belt back to Factory X.
Man, I think his pace is going to be too much. I feel like if we saw a weakness in Pantoja, it was his gas tank a little bit against Moreno. Obviously flyweights push a crazy pace. I feel like Brandon he thrives in the chaos, right? And I feel like his last fight, he found that knee knockout and he had chaos, but it was just a little more patience, which is kind of the one thing he's been missing, is just a little bit of patience. Like just turn it down the dial one little spot, right? And I feel like he's doing a great job of that. And I feel like his pace and presence and pressure is what's gonna bring home the win. I think he'll run Pantoja into something and finish when he hurts him. So he has a great killer instinct when he hurts people, whether it's finding a sub on rocked opponents or finding a KO. I think he gets it done by finish, and I'm so excited for that kid, man. If you were in the gym, I feel like anybody at Factor X would say like, he is the hardest worker, man. He's the epitome of like, this is the guy we need to train like, we need to work like this kid. And he's selfless with his teammates too. And he's a full homegrown Factory X kid. He's been there since he was 16 years old. And so for him to be the first champ is kind of out of Factory X is kind of fitting. And I'm just excited for him and Coach. I'm really excited for Coach to get his first champ. And I think Brandon's super deserving. So, I'm gonna be out there obviously with Dustin. My wife's flying out to watch. We got tickets, and I think a big contingency from Factor X is gonna be there. It's gonna be a great night.
Sending good vibes your way, guys. Hopefully, you get it done and bring that first belt back to Factory X. Before we
Yes.
transition to UFC Austin, I do have to get two quick fight picks from you. It's a Saturday right now. We're doing this interview. UFC 295 is tonight. This interview won't be released until next week, but give me your picks here. We have the title fights, heavyweight and light heavyweight. Who brings home the gold tonight?
I like Pereira. I just think Yuri's too hittable. He's tough, but tough only goes so far with a guy who hits like Pereira. I think he finishes and knocks him out. And then heavyweight, I think Aspinall's going to win, man. I think he's got more tools in the toolbox. I like him a lot. I think he's one of my favorite fighters, just from a fighting standpoint, and just I feel like he's a good dude when I watch his interviews. To me, he comes off as a pretty genuine guy, and he's pretty funny as well. He's pretty realistic of what it is. He knows if I get hit by this dude, I could get put out. But I just think he has a better skill set. I think he gets it done.
I'm with you. Those are the two guys that I have winning in my parlays. And for what it's worth, Cody, I had you on a 7-fight parlay when you fought Malkoon, and I won almost a grand. So that's
Perfect. Good.
I got to
Good
buy
things
you
happen to good people, bro.
right?
Good things happen to good people.
I got to buy you a drink or something to pay you back for that one day. All right, UFC Austin, December the 2nd. You're going to be fighting in Texas. It's going to be crazy there. I'm sure the fans are going to be going nuts come fighting it. How excited are you to be making the trip to Texas and fighting there?
I'm excited. It's his hometown, so kind of going to enemy territory, but I thrive in that. Grew up in the wrestling environment, and traveling to other gyms was always my favorite. And yeah, it's gonna be good, man. I feel like my wife hasn't seen me fight since my UFC debut. She was pregnant last time I fought in front of fans. Like I said, almost had the baby while I was gone, but so she'll get to see me, and I'm excited for that. I got a good crowd coming to watch, and yeah, fans always make it a little bit better. And I've heard Austin's a super cool city, so excited to get down there and see what it's about.
And your opponent, Zachary Reese, he's undefeated, but he's still, fairly new in his pro career. He's 6-0. You mentioned
Mhm.
earlier having Fremd in camp and how it's kind of hard to find guys his size at this weight class. Do you feel like with the look that you're getting from Fremd and just what you know from him, so far early in his career, that this is a good matchup for you?
Yeah, I feel like it's a good matchup. I feel like he gets some criticism because he hasn't fought like the best competition, but it's hard to criticize the guy because I feel like he's done exactly what he should do to those guys. I've been that guy. I was the guy coming up on the regional scene that was running through everybody. Um, so I know where he's at. Making your UFC debut in your hometown against somebody like me, I feel like I'm just starting to really feel like a vet. This will be my 8th UFC fight, ninth fight under Zuffa. I only had 6 fights outside of Zuffa, so it's getting up there, and I feel like it's a big ask. I think the jump in competition is huge. Like if you look at Zach Reese's competition, I would say that I'm the best guy he's fought. I feel like I don't think that that's controversy to say at all. I feel like he's far and away the best guy he's ever fought. And if you look at the guys I fought, I don't know if you would say Zach Reese is the best dude that I'm fighting. And that doesn't always mean anything. But it does kind of mean something. It's the experience, and experience goes a long way. And I do feel like I'm getting a great look with Josh. I feel like Josh is just a better version. I think he does everything a little bit better, and he's the same size. So, it gives you confidence when you're going against that, trying to solve the puzzles of that length and reach. And, I think it's a good matchup. I think Zach's good. I think if I don't show up, then I'll lose. I think that is very true. I don't think I'm gonna beat anyone if I don't show up, and I think I can beat most people if I do. So I just gotta lock it in and be ready to rock come fight night.
Did you take anything away from his Contender Series fight? I mean, round 1 armbar victory. What did you think of that performance?
I felt like he was probably losing up until the point that he got the armbar. He was kind of telegraphing some of his stuff, getting caught. But the savvy on the ground to finish the fight that's a good thing to do, man. Like I feel like, even though he was maybe going through a little bit of adversity, stayed calm, stayed like a vet, stayed composed, and was able to get a guy out of there that's known for his grappling. So it was impressive. A minute win on the Contender Series against an undefeated opponent is definitely impressive. And it just shows, he's not ever out of a fight. He can get dropped, he can get hurt, he's gonna find a way to claw back. So just have to be careful, and aware at all times.
And fighting and winning on Contender Series and then fighting and winning in the UFC, especially at a big venue with a bunch of screaming fans is something completely different. Do you feel like this is going to be something like that maybe he's never experienced before on this level, where maybe he's going to be nervous, and this is something that you can kind of capitalize on being the more veteran fighter?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume he'd be nervous, but I don't want to say that because I'm not sure. Maybe he's got nerves of steel, but I do 100% know it's something he's never done. He's never fought in front of 15,000 people and millions on TV. You think about that. He's never walked out for the UFC. He's never done a UFC fight week. He's never done any of those things. And we talked about nerves earlier. Like, I know what that feels like to do it for the first time. I did it on 48 hours notice. I know what it feels like. I did it on 7 days notice. Like I said, this is the most notice I've had to do it. And I don't know if you ever the nerves go away, but you learn to deal with them a little bit better. It's not the first time that you're dealing with them, and so I do think it gives me an advantage. I think the experience gives me an advantage. I think uh, just the people I've been in there with give me an advantage. I know where I stack up against some of the better guys in the world, and he doesn't really know that yet. He doesn't know where he stands. He doesn't know where uh, he knows where he thinks he stands. He knows where he thinks he belongs, and those kind of things, and that's good. And I'm sure he has a ton of confidence, but it's different. He's finished everyone in the minute. What happens when we get to 2 minutes? What happens when we get to 3 minutes? And like, I'm sure his plan is, come out and maybe he thinks I'll finish him before we get there. But if not, where are you at? He doesn't know where he's going to be in those moments. I know where I'll be. And I think that does give me a little bit of an advantage, a little bit of an edge.
So I'm just making a guess here, but based on what you're saying, do you feel like you're going to kind of wear him down and maybe get a finish late in the first, second? What's your ultimate prediction here?
Yeah, I feel like one of my it's weird because I feel like one of my biggest like superpowers and detriments is that I come out hot in every fight, and I feel like that's been great for me sometimes, and other times it's been not great. And so I'm just trying to focus on being a little more composed, a little more patient, find my spots. And that doesn't mean do nothing. It just means do things a little bit more intelligently. And not just, because I get out there and that's part of the nerves is I'm like, okay, I just want to get out of here. As soon as I get in there, I'm like, I just want to get out of here. So I feel like most of my fights, it doesn't take long to get to the action. Sometimes we'll see fights and guys will be like, oh, they've been feeling each other out for like 2 minutes, right? You've never seen a Cody Brundage fight and be like, oh, they're going to feel each other out for 2 minutes. So
That's true.
I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but I think just being a little bit more patient. And like you said, let's see where you're at 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I'll be prepared to go 15. Kind of like I said, I'm trying to adopt that Dustin Jacoby mentality. If I got to go 15 and be technical and win it over 15 minutes, I have the skill set to do that. And I just got to believe that. But I'm a finisher. I've finished most of my wins. And I feel like I'll find a spot in there if I'm patient. I feel like whether it's first, second, third, I feel like I'll find my spots. I feel like I can frustrate him. I feel like he'll run himself into something. Uh, I'm telling you all this. This is the plan. Who knows? Maybe I go out there and I'm a psycho. I hope not. That's not what I'm intending to do, right? But you get in there, it's just different, man. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing. You could have the best laid plans in the world, and then when you get in there, it's like, what are you doing? Like, I'll tell you this: when I fought Malkoun, I was like, I'm gonna piece this guy up. I'm gonna pick him apart, and then I found myself 10 seconds into the fight, taking him down. Like, so I just got to be a little more of a vet, a little more composed, and just a little more patient. And I think I do find a finish somewhere in that 15 minutes.
Can't wait to see you back in there, man. December the 2nd, can't get here soon enough. I don't want to fast forward past Thanksgiving, but looking forward to your next fight. Again, at UFC Austin, Cody Brundage takes on Zachary Reese. As always, dude, I appreciate your time. Great interview. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, anyone you want to thank, floor is yours.
I just want to thank my team, Factory X, Iridium. Wouldn't be here without them. And then, my wife. I just always want to thank my wife. She sacrifices more than anyone. I sacrifice a lot, but she sacrifices more than anyone. My daughters sacrifice a lot. So shout out to my family. And yeah, man, I love being on here with you. Always enjoy talking to you. And we'll link up after. We'll celebrate.